Halloween, as it is a holiday where children wear costumes and happily go from house to house, collecting candy as part of the fun tradition. Trick-or-treating. Deer Park neighborhood of Houston. It wasn't going to be fun anymore, as there was a house with a sinister plan. Instead of giving out regular candy, the house owner distributed Pixie Stix with poison inside them. On the same night, unfortunately, 8-year-old Timothy decided to eat his favorite Pixie Stix before going to bed, which tragically resulted in his death, leaving the rest in terror. But why did Pixie Stix were poisoned? What was the reason behind it? October 31, 1974. Started just like any typical Halloween night in the Deer Park suburb of Houston. Ronald O'Bryan, who hadn't been interested about Halloween in the past, was eager this year to take his children trick-or-treating. Ronald O'Bryan went trick-or-treating with his 8-year-old son, Timothy, and his daughter, Jim Bates, a close family friend, and his 2 children decided to join the O'Bryan family for their Halloween evening outing. They went door to door, some used to hand out candy, some didn't. It was raining that day. Ronald O'Bryan, as any concerned parent would do, only collected candy from houses in the 2-block area for about half an hour before coming back home. As Ronald prepared for bedtime, he agreed to let both of his children have one piece of candy before going to sleep. Both of them picked a large Pixie Stix, as it was their favorite from the candy they had received earlier while trick-or-treating. 30 seconds after Ronald left Tim's room, Ronald heard a sobbing voice coming from Tim's room, where Tim began to call out his dad, saying, "Daddy, Daddy, my stomach hurts." He was in the bathroom, experiencing convulsions, vomiting, and struggling to breathe. And then suddenly he went limp, carrying Tim in his arms. Ronald rushed to the hospital. Unfortunately, Tim passed away 90 minutes later at the hospital. No one knew how did it happen. An autopsy conducted later confirmed that Timothy had consumed cyanide, enough to kill 2 or 3 grown men. The police had determined that the Pixie Stix was laced with cyanide, which had led to the tragic outcome. His daughter, 5-year-old Elizabeth, who had also chosen the same candy before going to bed, she still held it in her hand till the next morning, cause she couldn't open it due to the staples keeping it shut. It was later discovered that her candy also contained poison. This terrifying revelation added to the shocking events of that Halloween night. The news of a child being poisoned to death sent shockwaves throughout Texas and the entire United States. The local detective involved in the case advised parents to discard all the Halloween candy collected by their children, saying, "It's just not worth the risk." He suggested that if parents want their children to have candy, they should buy it from the store rather than risking the safety of Halloween treats. Many parents, taking the detective's advice, had disposed their children's Halloween candy, fearing for their safety. This unfortunate event had a lasting impact and forever changed the way people viewed Halloween, with concerns about the safety of treats taking center stage. All of this leads to one question: what is the reason behind poisoning candies? In the early stages of the investigation, Ronald, who worked as an optician, assisted the police in trying to pinpoint where the poisoned Pixie Stix were given out. However, his help raised suspicions among the investigators. They seemed unable to locate the house, even though it was in a small area. While conducting their search, they discovered 3 more Pixie Stix with poison among the children who had received these dangerous candies. 2 of them were Jim Bates' children. Jim Bates, a close family friend who had joined the O'Bryan family for the Halloween outing, This finding raised suspicions around Ronald. Beccusa's family friend Jim Bates said. At one house, the children went to the door but didn't get any response. Ronald O'Bryan stayed behind the group. After about a minute, he caught up with them, holding 5 giant Pixie Stix candies. He claimed that the neighbors were actually home and handing out expensive treats. Ronald O'Bryan gave 1 candy each to his own 2 and friends' 2 children, and then handed the last one to a random trick-or-treater who had knocked on his door. Investigators also discovered that Ronald O'Bryan had recently acquired multiple life insurance policies for both of his children. Particular concern was the fact that his son, Timothy, had an insurance policy with a substantial payout of $30,000 in 1974. This revelation raised suspicions and became a significant factor in the investigation into the tragic events of Halloween night. As police dug deeper, they also learned that 2 months before his son died, Ronald O'Bryan called a friend who knew about chemicals and asked how to get cyanide and how much would be deadly. When his friend asked why, O'Bryan said he was just curious and didn't mean anything by it. Also, there was a person who sold chemicals, and O'Bryan wanted to buy cyanide from them, but the smallest amount they had was 5 pounds, which was way too much. So, he decided not to buy it. These things made people very suspicious about O'Bryan and his role in the poisoning his own son. On Monday, November 4th, Ronald O'Bryan was taken into custody. Despite portraying himself as a grieving father and insisting on his innocence, Ronald O'Bryan found himself in a difficult situation. Initially, the police did not reveal much about the evidence they had against him. However, following his failure on a polygraph test, he was arrested on November 5, 1974, and formally charged with the murder of his son Timothy. 1 week later, during a recorded grand jury hearing, it became evident that there was strong evidence pointing towards Ronald's involvement in the murder. I am not able to imagine a crime more reprehensible than someone killing his own child for money. Clyde DeWitt, a former assistant district attorney in Houston who worked on the case, tells A&E True Crime. In May 1975, during Ronald O'Bryan's trial, several witnesses, including his own wife, testified against him. His brother mentioned that Ronald wasn't good at managing his life and had financial troubles at the time of Timothy's death. His wife, Damien O'Bryan, told the jury about the constant financial struggle they faced. They had debts and were late on some loan payments. Shockingly, she discovered that Ronald had bought $10,000 worth of accidental life insurance policies for both of their children. After Timothy's funeral, she found out he had spent another $108 on premiums for 2 more policies, each worth $20,000. What troubled her even more was that Ronald started talking about how they would spend the insurance money shortly after their son had passed away. He wanted to use it to pay off bills and go on a trip to Florida, which deeply alarmed her considering the circumstances. His insurance agent also testified that Ronald had called him shortly after Timothy's death to start the insurance claim process. In his defense, character witnesses portrayed Ronald as a kind and caring person who was good with children and attended church regularly, where he also volunteered his time. One co-worker described him as a concerned parent who was sensitive to children's needs. However, despite the defense's efforts, Ronald O'Bryan was found guilty on June 3, 1975. After the Houston jury deliberated for only 46 minutes. The following day, he was sentenced to the electric chair. By March 31, 1984, the method of execution had changed to lethal injection. Ronald Clark O'Bryan was declared dead at 12:48 in the morning. He maintained his innocence throughout, saying in an interview before his death, "Because I have no guilt, I've really got nothing to worry about." In his last statement, he used his faith to express forgiveness to those who were about to execute him. What is about to transpire in a few moments is wrong. However, we as human beings do make mistakes and errors. This execution is one of those wrongs. Yet it doesn't mean our whole system of justice is wrong. Therefore, I would forgive all who have taken part in any way in my death. Also, to anyone I have offended in any way during my 39 years, I pray and ask your forgiveness, just as I forgive anyone who offended me in any way. And I pray and ask God's forgiveness for all of us, respectively as human beings. To my loved ones, I extend my undying love. To those close to me, know in your hearts I love you one and all. God bless you all. And may God's best blessings be always yours. Ronald C. O'Bryan P.S. During my time here, I have been treated well by all TDC personnel. Outside the Huntsville, Texas prison, employees from a local bar distributed Pixie Stix to the 200 to 300 people who had gathered outside the death chamber. Ronald O'Bryan, now known by the man who ruined Halloween, the man who killed Halloween, and the Candy Man, never admitted his guilt. But there are theories about why he targeted Halloween and poisoned candy for his crime. Some believe that he might have been aware of urban legends about Halloween candy poisoners. He may have thought that using cyanide-laced candy would shift suspicion away from him and onto some anonymous and fictional Halloween threat. This disturbing tactic could have been an attempt to divert attention from his sinister actions. In a 2004 interview, former Harris County Assistant District Attorney Mike Hinton said, "O'Bryan is the man that ruined Halloween for the whole world." Thanks for listening.